Windsor police telling us the area where the apparent noose was found is accessible by hundreds of different employees and is not monitored by surveillance cameras. The NAACP now speaking out, calling this incident alarming and disturbing. Windsor police confirming an apparent noose was found on the second floor of an under construction Amazon warehouse Tuesday afternoon. Police say they also discovered 5 additional ropes that appeared to be nooses on other floors throughout the building this week.
We want action. We want accountability.
The NAACP demanding the Justice Department and state police join forces with the Windsor Police Department to investigate, and says the heinous negative historical significance of a noose to African Americans cannot be overlooked in Connecticut.
You would think that we were in Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, or Louisiana, or somewhere in the deep south, but no, we're in Connecticut, where it's up south, where this type of racist behavior is being conducted.
NAACP leaders fired off on Amazon, saying the company should be responding personally and should also explain how it plans to handle the incident.
They have a duty and a responsibility to the people, not just forwarding an email to us.
Amazon did release a statement reading in part, "We're deeply disturbed by this incident. Hate, racism, or discrimination have no place in our society and are certainly not tolerated in any Amazon workplace, whether it be under construction like this one or fully operational." Black community leaders and Windsor residents agree the news sends the message of a clear threat to African Americans and those of color who are working on the construction site.
The use of a noose, to me, is a symbol of terrorism that is deeply rooted, quite frankly, in a shameful chapter in America's history. We will not tolerate bigotry or racism in the town of Windsor, and for that matter, here in the state of Connecticut.
And it's not funny. I think it's foolish, especially now at this day and age.
I don't understand. Someone would have had to have some way of getting in there.
The NAACP also requesting a response from Governor Lamont. His spokesperson tells Fox 61 the governor supports a full investigation into the incident to make sure those responsible are held accountable. In Windsor, Zania Maldonado, Fox 61 News.